If you're already listening on YouTube, hang in there for a minute. I'm sorry that I have to start the broadcast so early because I have multiple broadcasts like Facebook and YouTube that we have to get started before the radio show starts. And the radio show, you'd think it started at 4:30, but it kind of starts just a few seconds before or after. So I always have to be ready. So if you're tuned in on YouTube now and you're twiddling your thumbs, wondering why the video's live, but I'm not talking, it's because we're waiting for a live start for the actual radio broadcast. But thanks for being here. Thanks for hanging out with me. We'll be back. We'll be starting in just a minute.
KDXI St. George, Radio St. George at 100.3 FM. And we welcome you to The Extraordinary Talk Show, a show to help you understand yourself and the world from a new perspective. And in the process, help you find your own personal extraordinary. And now your host for The Extraordinary Talk Show, Della Hill.
Happy Monday, everybody. Welcome back to The Extraordinary Talk Show. Let's jump right in. Guys, I talk about intuition all the time. Intuition. I'm always saying, listen to your intuition. Are you not listening to your intuition? Are you not hearing it? How about you meditate more? That's basically what I've said for the last year is, are you listening to your intuition? And if you can't hear it, try meditating. And even if you can hear it, meditate some more because that'll help you hear it even better. Our intuition is way bigger than we give it credit for. Most of us are aware that we can hear a voice, the still small voice, the spirit, guidance, inner being, whatever name you want to put on it. I like the name intuition because it covers all of that. But if there's a word that you like better, if you like to call it the still small voice or the Holy Spirit, then please use those words. And I absolutely honor whatever word you choose to use that means that for you. The thing about our intuition, though, is it's much, much bigger, broader, and vaster than we give it credit for. And the reason why is because we don't realize how big it is. And because we don't realize how big it is, we don't pay attention. Our intuition is guiding us and talking to us all day long, every day, whether we're listening or not. And the truth is, we're listening a lot more than we think we are. There are a multitude of thoughts that come into your head all day long that are not your original thoughts, but they are guidance from your intuition. It might be a prompt to stop in that store. It might be the idea, hey, I think I'd like to go shopping over there. Or, you know what, I haven't called my mom for a while. Maybe I should give her a call. It could be all these little things and reminders of things that might be a good idea to do, or step over here. And you'll notice that you have coincidences happen in your life. The thing about coincidences is a coincidence is a perfect alignment of 2 points. It's not an accident. We think of a coincidence as being an accidental happening. It's not. Coincidences are never accidental. The term coincidence means an intentional aligning of 2 points. When you have those coincidences happen in your life, you can notice those are signs from your intuition. Sometimes your intuition speaks quietly in your head, and sometimes it throws something directly in front of you so that you can't miss it. And yet, we still often do. Don't blame yourself, though. One thing that's critical, whether it's the intuition or loving yourself or no matter what it comes down to, whatever the topic is, don't beat up on yourself. If you're sitting there going, oh, Della probably hears her intuition, but that doesn't mean I can. That's not true. In fact, I feel so strongly about how not true that is. I had to bite my tongue so I wouldn't say things on the radio that I shouldn't say on the radio. You have absolute full power of your intuition, whether you know it or not. You might think that this is something other people have. It's something you have. I don't have to know you. I don't have to talk to you to find out. Every human has this. In fact, animals have intuition too. How do you think that animals live? We call it instinct, but it's more than instinct. It's actually inspiration that guides us on a day-to-day basis. And it works for you too. If you're not hearing it, you actually are. You just don't realize it. So the trick to start is to pay attention to it, to be listening to it. And when you see some of those coincidences happen, ask yourself, was I guided there? Did something put me in that place at that time for this to happen? And then even say, did I have a thought earlier that prompted me to come here to this place where this would happen? Kind of backtrack when some of those things happen to see where the intuition started, where you got that first trigger of a thought in your mind that encouraged you to go forward and do this other thing that then caused this coincidence to happen. Like, easy example, because I talked about it last week. One morning in Hawaii, when my husband and I were walking down the beach, we passed 20 different restaurants and we kept saying, do you want to eat there? No. Do you want to eat there? No. Do you want to eat there? No. None of these places felt like the right place. We finally got to one, and for some reason, it felt right. That was the restaurant where we met my musical hero's backup singer, who got us invited to the concert with tickets and backstage passes. But I didn't know I was paying attention to my intuition when I was walking past other restaurants. I wasn't asking, am I going to have a really amazing, phenomenal opportunity this morning and I have to be in the right restaurant for that to happen? I'm glad I wasn't thinking that, because if I'd been thinking that, I would have overthought it and I probably wouldn't have picked a restaurant at all. Maybe I would have been so afraid of picking the right one that I wouldn't have picked one at all. That happens to us all the time. That's fear of fear. It's called intimidation. And try to be aware of when that happens to you so that you can get a little bit better about not having that happen to you. But going back and looking back at walking down the beach, I can kind of remember feeling, no, that restaurant doesn't feel right. No, that restaurant doesn't feel right. And there was just little gentle nudges that I didn't even realize were from my intuition guiding me to the right restaurant to eat at, because it mattered. Not everything is a big deal. You don't have to worry that, am I doing the right thing right this second every minute? Because truth be told, you are. Just relax about it. And trust in that perfect timing. When you trust in that perfect timing, miracles happen. The thing about your intuition is there's so much more to it than you think. It's broader than you think. I've talked a lot about intuition as how to get more guidance for your life, how to find answers to your questions, how to find peace, and how to love yourself. And your intuition will help you with all of those things. But your intuition is broader. Think of a cone, an antenna that goes out above your head like a cone this way, right? When it comes down into your head, it's kind of in a point, but it's actually super, super broad. This is just a visual to help you understand. So you think of yourself as being at the bottom of the point, but consider all of the information that is available in that whole funnel that is funneling to you, and you have access to all of it. One thing that's really interesting, and if you know somebody that you're close to, that you're good friends with, that you like a lot, you'll notice the times when you think something that they think. You open your mouth to speak, and they say what you are about to say. I do this with my husband, the wonderful Chris, all the time. We even have a nickname for it. We call it Larry. Larry is what we have named our shared consciousness, because he and I spend so much time together. We talk so much. We do understand how each other thinks, but very, very often we're not even thinking about the same thing, but the same word or the same idea or the same sentence will come out of it. The name Larry came when he was thinking about a TV show and I was narrating a cat video. The two had nothing to do with each other than that there was a character in the TV show named Larry that he was thinking about, and I was narrating the cat video and called the cat Larry. And he went, hey, why did you say that? The thing was, we've been married 22 years and we think the same things sometimes. And sometimes I can pick up on his thoughts and he can pick up on my thoughts. That's part of our intuition. Do you understand that? Your intuition, here's a secret, is not yours alone. Your intuition is connected to a greater consciousness that other humans also have access to. So you can know something that other people know. This happens, we have evidence of this happening when a new disease is found. It's a disease that nobody's ever had, nobody's ever named it or labeled it. And then as soon as one person defines it, they go to a doctor, the doctor studies it, the doctor gives it a name, and ta-da, within months, several other people across the world have now had this exact same disease, even though it didn't exist before. Because now that one person has had it, that is now in the shared consciousness that we all have. And so other people have picked up on it. That might sound silly. Here's another way. Rats. Scientists have tested rats across the world. They've tested rats on all 7 different continents. And they've coordinated, and they would teach all of the rats a trick and figure out how long it took them to learn the new trick. The thing was, all the rats across the world had random amounts of time it took them. Then they would get one rat who could do it. And when one rat learned that trick, other rats around the world that had never met this rat, talked to this rat, interacted with this rat, now can do the same trick much faster than they used to be able to. When one rat in the entire world learns a new trick, it becomes easier for all of the other rats in the world to learn how to do. We have a shared consciousness. So if we have a shared consciousness, does that mean that you can know what another person is thinking? Can you have psychic ability? And the answer is yes. That doesn't mean that you can peek into somebody else's brain, because that's an issue of privacy, and we all have our own protection of our own privacy. However, when it's someone that you're close to or someone that you love or someone that gives you permission, you can, with the right amount of practice, or even better, doing it accidentally, know what their thoughts are, hear their thoughts, or hear their feelings. That's something that you often notice if, let's say, you're married and one day your spouse is at work and you're not, or you're at your own work and you're doing something different, but you get a feeling about your spouse, you worry about them, and then you find out that they're having a bad day. And you wouldn't have normally had that same kind of worry about them on a regular day, but then you find out that day there was actually something to it that you noticed when your spouse had something bad happen to them or something they perceived as bad. You felt that even though you weren't with them. That's normal. That's common. Do you know that our pets know when we're going to get home? There's another study that was done on household pets, because our pets begin to get excited 5 to 15 minutes before we get home, even if we get home at different times than usual. And animals know a routine, right? If you come home at the same time every day, your dog's going to know what time you're coming home every day. But even for people who come home at different times of day, when they come home sporadically or whatever, their animals would still get excited before they got home. Because our animals know when we're on our way home, even though we didn't call or text to tell them. They just know. And you can know things about the people around you. We call this being psychic. That's one word for it. You can just call it greater intuition. But guys, I want to talk about some of the other quote unquote psychic abilities that you might find as you are expanding your intuition. As you expand your intuition, how far you can expand it is limitless. It is limited only by your beliefs about what you can do, about what abilities you might have, and your allowing of these abilities. One is clairvoyance, which is clear seeing. A lot of times that comes to people in dreams, or you might meditate and see a vision and know from the vision that something is going to happen. Or you might wake up from a dream and say, hey, I dreamt about that, and then that thing happens either in that day or later on in your life. You might get a clear picture of an idea and follow it through. There's also clear audience, and audi meaning hearing, meaning that you can hear things that are not in this actual physical reality. For example, have you ever heard your name called and nobody was there? That's a pretty common thing. That happens to a lot of people. This happened to my dad, and I hope he doesn't mind me sharing this story. Before he was dating my mother, he was dating another woman, and he liked her, and he thought that maybe she was the one that he should marry, that he should spend his life with. And my dad has a wonderful relationship with his creator. So my dad prayed. He got down on his knees and he asked, is this who I should marry? And he heard with his physical ears the words, she's not the one. And it surprised him. It made him jerk his head up and open his eyes and look around and go, where'd that come from? There was nobody there. But he clearly heard the words, she's not the one. Well, he broke it off with that girl and ended up meeting this other lady at church who was a nurse who he really liked, and they ended up getting married and had 8 children, of which I'm one of them. So I'm really, really grateful that my dad listened when he got that clear audience, that he paid attention to that one, because clearly my mom, who he's now been married to for over 50 years, was the one. Another one is clear sentience, and this one is the one that we feel that we probably have the most. It's a feeling, and you walk into a room and you feel the energy in the room, and you may not even realize it. You just walk in and you just know that you're a little bit uneasy. You can feel how different situations feel. And we all have this so much that we talk about our gut feeling. We talk about just knowing. It's very common. Pay attention to it. Something that is very similar is being an empath, which means that you pick up on the emotions of other people, that in that clear feeling, you feel other people's emotions. This can be exhausting until you learn how to shield yourself, close your navel chakra, and cut yourself off from that energy. It is possible to do it, and it's important to do that if you want to function and you're a strong empath. But it's something that we all have. You know, there's been times when you've been in a room with someone who's upset and you end up feeling upset even though you don't have any good reason to. Another favorite of mine is claircognizance, which is just clear knowing. And this happens to you all the time. I guarantee it. And it happens to me where somebody, this used to happen a lot. This is a silly example, but I would always know where my husband's things are. He would say, hey, have you seen my watch? And in a way, it might have even been a little bit of clairvoyance, because I could close my eyes and see where his watch was. Even if I hadn't seen it where he put it down, even if I hadn't seen it since he put it down, even if he put it in a different place, I could close my eyes and I could see where his watch was. He would search all over for the keys and say, I can't find the keys anywhere. Where are they? And I would close my eyes and I would tell him exactly where they were, and he would go upstairs and find them. And that was a very, very common thing. And through my life, I've had different periods of that. And some things you just know. Your claircognizance is one thing I want you to be listening to when you listen to me talk. Because even though I'm very confident in the things that I'm telling you, I do not expect you to believe me just because I said so and I'm confident about what I'm saying. I want you to look inside, to look at your intuition, to listen to your intuition, and look for that piece of clear knowing. Because you have that voice. Your intuition speaks inside of you and tells you when something is true. You generally have two little voices inside of you. One is your intuition that's always there and only speaks the truth. It only speaks love, and it only tells you how amazing and wonderful and awesome you are. But if you don't believe that, it makes it hard to listen to. The other voice in your head is what has been told to you by other humans, books, videos, radio, media, whatever, and yet you repeat all of those things as if they are true. They're not all of them, a couple of them here and there. So you have these two voices. One is the regurgitation of human understanding, and one is the voice of clear knowing. Anytime you receive information from me or from any other source, you can ask, is this a real thing? In fact, you may ask, or you might not need to ask, because you might just know. And sometimes, very often in fact, when you receive information that your intuition knows to be accurate and true, the voice inside your head that's regurgitating all the humans you've ever listened to your whole life can't understand how it's true. And so those two voices tend to argue, and that can kind of cause some conflict within you, right? Because what you've believed to be true, what you've heard, so it's easier to believe, the regurgitation of other humans, is in contrast with the voice of your clear knowing. And let's say that those other humans have always told you that you're not good enough, you're not smart enough, and people don't like you. And so that's what you've come to believe. And then that other voice, the one that only speaks love, that speaks truth, that tells you how amazing you are and how wonderful you are and how awesome you are, you can't believe that. You, based on your history and your experience of believing the regurgitation of other humans, have come to believe that you're not good enough. When that voice, that little voice inside you, tells you that you are. But because you believe one over the other, that's the one you listen to. I want you to pay attention to that. When you hear in your own head the voice repeated saying, I'm not good enough, ask yourself, what voice is talking to you? Is that your inner voice, your true knowing, the access that you have to the truth of all knowledge, that the access to that guidance that you were sent to earth with, because your creator was not going to send you to earth to be alone, but your creator sent you to earth with constant, endless, unlimited guidance? But yet it's harder for you to believe that, because it's easier to believe the voices of human regurgitation that you're not good enough. Pay attention to those two voices. And it might be really, really hard to believe the one that tells you that you are good enough, but that's the one that's telling you the truth. And if you'll really, really listen to it, that voice will confirm that for you. And you won't need me to tell you, because nothing I can tell you has any value or truth to it until you evaluate it and decide for yourself. So please do. And my friends, you wouldn't be here listening to me talk if you didn't think that there was something to that. If you didn't think that maybe your intuition really could be speaking the truth to you, and just maybe you really could hear it. And when you hear it, I want you to consider the vastness of it, that maybe you're just barely beginning to believe it a little bit, tiny bit, when it says that you're good enough. But keep going, because it has a lot of other really amazing things to tell you. One other spiritual gift that is on my list that I didn't get to, there's a lot. The power to heal is considered a spiritual gift, not necessarily a psychic gift if you want to put a label on it. And mediumship. Mediumship is the ability to interact with entities that are not living in the see it, hear it, feel it, taste it, touch it physical reality that we're in. I've experienced this as a hospice nurse when my patients pass away and yet communicate with me. When their soul is no longer in that physical body that got so old and sick. Their soul is now free and liberated. But that soul still lives because it never died. The body it lived in for a while, that couldn't handle it anymore. But the soul never dies. The ability to communicate never dies. I've had patients who have passed away who have communicated with me within minutes of their death, and sometimes much, much later. Mediumship and channeling is something that a lot of people don't get, but consider that the more you listen to your intuition, the more it opens the door to talk to you. And you can open that door as wide or as small as you want. If you want more abilities to be aware of what other people are thinking and feeling, you can have that. If you want the ability to communicate with those not in the physical reality, you can have that too. And there are many, many people in the world who have those abilities and use them. Right here in St. George, Utah, there's an amazing woman named Pamela Erlin who channels. She has a YouTube channel that she channels on. She channels on her channel. But she will select a person and usually kind of build a relationship with them before she turns a camera on. But she's able to channel them and answer questions the way that they would answer them. To someone else, that might seem really odd. To me, because of the things that I've experienced and seen myself, where I've seen people's own resistance get out of the way and they allow those voices in. Guys, pay attention to that voice. Not the one that's based on human regurgitation. Pay attention to the one that's inside you that knows and loves you. I love you too. I hope you have a great week, and I'll see you next time. This is The Extraordinary Talk Show with Della Hill.
You've been listening to The Extraordinary Talk Show with Della Hill. Search YouTube and Facebook, Spotify, or Podbean for video and podcasts of this show, or go to radiostgeorge.com. We'll see you next week for another edition of The Extraordinary Talk Show.